something we can help you with tonight, let one of us know. But thank you for coming. A couple of logistics. I understood the air conditioner was locked earlier, but unlocked and has been lowered, so I hope the temperature is okay. If you get hot, you might make your way to the doors where it's a little cooler outside. If you've never been to the Freeman Sasser refurbed building, it is great. Thank you for visiting. I'm not sure what the seating capacity is, but a head count for me just for our record. Thanks everybody for coming. A couple of housekeeping points in addition to the exits being here. If you got to go to the restroom, they're behind the wall. Obviously, we will see you when you go. If you have to go, you might want to make your way now and make your way to the restroom. Obviously, we mentioned about refreshments. I hope everybody has gotten your refreshments and are seated where you will be. We got a pretty full agenda tonight. We'll get started a little bit early since everybody seems to be here, and we'll launch. But let me give you what I'll do for kind of an agenda. I'm going to go over the election process just briefly, what's stated in the city charter and the elections package, just so everybody gets an idea with the elections. I'll give you an overview of the format that we chose to use tonight. It is the Historical Society's format. It's not meant to be confrontational or a debate, but just an open forum. I'll introduce each candidate. Obviously, we have candidates for mayor and city council with us, and I'll introduce everybody and give them an opportunity to speak to you with regards to their bio, their qualifications, and that type of thing. And then we'll open up for about an hour's worth of Q&A, which I'll go over kind of the rules of engagement with that shortly, but obviously there's a microphone set up in front of there, so if you'll come out to the microphone, I'll say this a number of times, please state your name, your address, and then you got one more for your question. Okay. So, please silence your phones. If everybody's got your phones, make sure that's on silent. This event is being recorded for the record, but it is not being broadcast or streamed, so this is a live audience in attendance. We'd like to ask you to hold all your questions until the Q&A session. Speaking of here, okay, we've adjusted the volume of the microphone a couple of times. Is this okay? Everybody good in here? Okay. So with that being said, let me kind of go over what we're going to do for our format. We're going to take the first session, which is 20 minutes, and we'll go over the city council and the candidates that are running for city council. Each candidate will be given 7 minutes to introduce themselves, give their qualifications, their motivation for running, and what their individual platforms are. And then we'll switch to the mayor's side, and we'll go 25 minutes for the mayors to basically do the same, but we'll give them 10 minutes apiece, okay? And then we'll go into the Q&A session. So for an hour, we'll open the floor up for public questions. Again, you'll state your name and address before your question. We'll limit your question to 1 minute, please, and the candidates will limit theirs to 3 minutes. I'll keep time in order with this. We'd like to ask everybody to please be respectful and neighborly. We love this town. We love our community. Let's keep it that way. We are expecting a fair, honest, and open discussion. That's the expectation for tonight, not necessarily a classical debate. I don't expect anybody to critique the moderator, but if you do, tell my wife, not me. Okay, to open up, I'd like to quickly give an overview of what happens with the election as I understand it. And then if you've done like me, if you've gone to the City of Senoia website, you probably have read this already, but I'm going to read a couple of things and then introduce who the current City Council and current Mayor are before we get into the elections. So allow me to read a little bit. The City of Senoia is governed by a Mayor and 4 council members who serve terms of 4 years. According to Section 2.2 of the Charter of the City of Senoia, each council member will run for a specific post elected by a citywide population. We currently have about 5,800 registered voters in the City of Senoia, so it'll be up to us that elect the upcoming city positions. The current city council in Post 1 is Matt Faust, who's here, Andrew Lowe, Mo Grover, is Mo here? And Dale Reeder, I saw Dale earlier, Dale's over here. And our current mayor is Doug Pearman. So if you're not familiar with that, that's step one, that's who your current officials are. In the election that's going to be held November 4th, we're electing Post 1, which is incumbent Matt Faust and Brent Anderson. Also up for election is Post 2, Andrew Lowe is the current incumbent and running uncontested. Thank you, Andrew, for coming. And for mayor, we've got Doug Pearman, I mentioned, as the incumbent, and Scott Tigchelaar as the challenger. The mayor and city council determine policies, enact legislation, and provide political leadership in the community. Mayor and council meetings are held on the first and third Mondays of each month at 7 o'clock at the municipal court building. And the requirements as written in the city charter are pretty basic, but just so I cover everything, the city of Senoia requires you to be a resident of the city, to continue to reside in the city during your period of service, continue to be registered and qualified to vote. The state of Georgia requires you to be a citizen of the United States, at least 18 years of old, and not convicted of any felony. There are several other statutory requirements, but that's the basic requirements for the city. Okay. So I'd like to start off with the city council session. And by corn toss, which I forgot to do. Okay, so I'm going to, let me introduce Matt Faust, current city councilman. He's going to give an overview of his bio, his qualifications, his motivation, and platform for why he's running for city council.
It's okay, that's fine. First and foremost, thank you everybody for coming out. I feel like I'm really loud. Thank you everybody for coming out first and foremost. It's great to see when citizens want to get involved, want to be informed, want to be able to ask questions. I would love if all of our city council meetings would have this many people. Most might not agree, but I would be absolutely happy with that. So very, very quick bio. My name is Matt, obviously. I'm 45 years old. I'm an executive producer of live events and activations for the Coca-Cola Company. That is a very fancy way of saying I'm a glorified AV guy and project manager. Obviously, based on the qualifications, I live here in Senoia. We've been here roughly 7.5 years, where I live with my lovely wife, April, who's here. Smile and wave. She's going to kill me for that one. And then the favorite, most important, happiest person to live in this city, my beautiful daughter, Gabrielle. Gabby, can you say hi? You know, we moved here 7.5 years ago because it felt like a place that we could call home. We had bounced around Henry County for a number of years, starting in 2002. I'm looking at my wife to correct me. But we bounced around several places, you know, here and there in Henry County before we realized that just what we were looking for wasn't there. My brother had lived here for several years prior, so when we would come here for family events, things like that, my parents still live in the house that I grew up in the north side of Fayette County. My brother lives here in Springdale, so we would come here and fell in love with the town. It's a great town, the character of the town, but more importantly, it's the people that live in this town that make it special and make it what it is. So during the course of the pandemic, the long story short is got bored, got a little lonely, started looking around, and realized that there were some things that, you know, I might want to consider doing differently. One of the biggest things was trying to be upfront, communicative, transparent, answering questions. There was not a whole lot of engagement from the city nor our elected officials regarding social media. Social media, whether people like it or not, is still the easiest way to try and speak and be able to inform people. And that was the primary thing I ran on, was we need to be better informed. The information needs to be out there. People need to be able to have their questions answered in the forum that they are used to being able to communicate in, right? It's not hard. So the past 4 years, I've essentially taken on myself to do what I can within my time and ability and everything else, and you know what is legally correct to do, to try and make sure that agendas are out there, questions are addressed. You know, it's not just, oh, Sunday night, Monday morning, post about an agenda and then go back to ignoring it and keep it moving. It's somebody asks a question on a Wednesday. And if I don't know the answer, I love that because that means I can go find the answer and then everybody gets to learn a little something too, potentially. That was the primary concern. You know, honestly, it was pretty simple and straightforward. Moving forward, you know, we're at a pretty big crossroads here. The development curve of the city is continuing to go up, and it's really trying to make sure that we're doing what we can with input from the citizens, from community stakeholders and everybody else, to make sure that the growth that is coming, the growth that is ultimately inevitable, is still done the right way, sensibly. Densities are fine, that we are really looking at infrastructure that's our water, our sewer, our roadways, trying to ensure that, you know, I don't see anybody from Senoia PD here, but I read that we have once again been rated one of the safest cities in Georgia, that size notwithstanding, and that's because we've got an excellent and well-funded police department, and making sure that we hold those things tight because those are the things that we have a lot of control over, while also, like I said, just trying to make sure that we continue smart growth, intelligent growth, you know, hold back on it as much as we can, understanding that, I've always said this, if anybody's going to tell you they can come in here and stop the growth, unfortunately they're lying to you. You can't stop it, you can try and mold it and shape it, but that's it. Property owners have rights, and that's just how it works. Otherwise, things like parking, traffic, you know, there are a lot of, you know, pretty standard fare issues that we do as a city have to address. You know, and I'm happy to jump into that, look at outside of the box options and things like that to help solve some of these day-to-day issues that we have. I'm trying really, how much time do I have left? Because I'm trying hard to take 2 minutes, that's beautiful. I'm trying really hard to take 7 minutes because I always told no more than 5. But so, anyway, I'm happy to take any question. I'm not one to run from the questions or the conversations. I'll close in this. The one thing that I've always said is that it's about information. I'm not here to try and sell anybody anything. I'm not trying to sell my vision for what Senoia is, because the reality is that that's not my decision to make. That's our decision. It's working with the developers, stakeholders, and things like that to come up with a cohesive vision that will be ultimately beneficial for all of us. And so that's the catch there. I'm not trying to sell anything. My main thing has always been, and I've said this for 4 years, and I will continue to say it in the future, I want you to be well-informed and angry, and that's it. Know the facts, be angry about that if that's what you want to do. I don't want to try and change your mind. I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of what, how, and why. So thank you to everybody for coming out. You'll have a lovely evening. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Matt. I intentionally put the campaign signs in front of the table so that you can associate a face with a name. And if you haven't seen enough of the campaign signs already, here they are. Up next, I'm going to introduce Brent Anderson. He can tell us his bio and platform.
Thanks. Keep the round of applause going. I want to give you guys a hand for showing up. This is amazing. You guys are amazing. I love it when citizens are engaged and you know, they want to come out, they want to hear what's going on. So I appreciate you guys coming out, taking time, you know, in your evening to come out and hear what's happening here in Senoia. Again, I'm Brent Anderson. My wife April and I have lived here for more than 17 years. We raised 4 kids here, and we started our journey, I guess, for the first 8 years we were here. We were pastoring Senoia Vineyard Community Church. Some of you might identify that property as where I-58 Mission is. Our heart when we stepped into that role, and I'm just going to say it plainly, I drew the short straw on pastoring that church. That was not part of my. That was not part of my. It's not part of my plan or anything. But the leaders of that church asked me in a very difficult time if I would be willing to lead forward, and we did that for 8 years. The previous pastor had resigned, and they asked us if we would lead forward. And the heart for us in that church was to serve this community. Those of you who know me and have known me since then, our passion was, how can we be of service to Senoia? We went to a church conference, early in our tenure, and someone asked a pointed question. If the doors of your church were closed, would anybody even know you were gone? And the answer to that question at the time we took over was no one would know. But with a heart intentional on service, we rallied people to volunteer for events. We were in town. We were looking for opportunities to connect. We started a community garden in that church, and it would supplement our food pantry. And the spirit of that continues on in I-58 Mission, if any of you are familiar with that. I was a charter member of the board for I-58 Mission. Karma Novak, as she moved forward, we were cheering her on and looking for opportunities to support her wherever we could. And ultimately, I-58 Mission bought that property and building, and it continues to be a place of service to the felt needs of our community. I joined my wife April in launching Backpack Buddies of Georgia. Some of you may be familiar with that. We essentially feed at-risk kids for hunger and neglect on the weekends who rely on the food system, the free and reduced lunch in the school system. So we pack bags. April, I don't know how many bags are packed on a weekly basis, but approaching 2,000 bags. We're in every school in Coweta County. We started in that same building with 36 students in 3 schools, with just, again, a passion to serve and care for our community. Some of you may recognize me from the coffee shop in town. For, I guess, the last almost 10 years, we've owned and operated the coffee shop, and we were at 1 Main Street where Senoia Beer Company is currently. We had an opportunity to buy the property we're in now, 30 Main Street. We launched the first food hall in Coweta County, and we're still there serving. Senoia Coffee is one among 4 food vendors in that establishment. So that passion for us was to serve the community as well. Let's welcome people around food and drink on their terms, not on my terms in a church setting or a church's organizational terms. Let's open up for people to come in. I've seen so many people just sharing friendships. Community happens in there. We didn't have a restaurant background or anything. Our motivation was food for the community to come in and join around food and drink. And then you might see me in town, volunteering at events, really behind the scenes, looking for opportunities, pick up trash where I can, and serve in whatever capacity I can. It's a heart for service that has drawn me to this opportunity. And I look around at all of you, and you guys are the what makes Senoia amazing. When we moved here in 2008, we instantly fell in love with this place. This was home. These were our people. And I look forward to the opportunity to earn your trust and gain your vote on November 4th. For me, the motivation to move toward this is not using my scene. I don't like politics. I don't like us versus them. I said before, Matthew is not my adversary, he's my neighbor, and we look for opportunities to connect and be a bridge builder. I see opportunity for improvement in our city. Matthew talked about clear and transparent communication. I see significant opportunity for continued improvement in that realm. One solution might be to live stream our city council meetings. I'm totally in favor of that. I'd love to see that happen. I'd love to have more town hall forums like this where people want to show up and have their voice heard and their concerns listened to. I love being in front of you and with you as my neighbors in Senoia. Yeah, thank you. And then government efficiency and fiscal responsibility. Throughout the budget process over the last month or so, I've noticed a significant opportunity for improvement as it relates to our budget presentations and the efficiency of our government. I want to continue the theme of transparency. Let's put the numbers out there in clear and understandable terms, and let's look for opportunities to steward the taxpayers' money wisely. And then finally, I'd like to talk about thoughtful growth, visionary, thoughtful growth. You got to get into the conversation early and help direct the developers toward caring for this place. Let them support the infrastructure that will be so sorely needed if the expansion comes when it comes. We want to support walkable and connected community. We want our infrastructure to not be outpaced by our growth. And so we value thoughtful, visionary, and consistent growth. And I appreciate your support, and I thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Thanks.
Thank you, Brent. Also, I mentioned earlier the City Council Post 2, Andrew Lowe is running unopposed, and Andrew, I'm not going to give you a chance to speak to save time. However, if you have a question for Andrew during Q&A, you may. Sorry about that. Thank you for coming, or to save a little bit of time there. Did everybody get a chance, if you're on Facebook, you see the candidates' videos? Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Kind of gets you to know them a little bit better, and maybe if you haven't met them personally, might make you a little bit at ease or a subject to talk with them on. So I thought that was a good touch too. We're going to switch from the city council to mayor now. We're going to allow 10 minutes for each candidate. Basically do the same thing. We have the former boss and Doug's going first. So let's welcome Mr. Doug Pearman.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. I appreciate the support. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Doug Pearman. I've been your mayor since June of 2020. And tonight I'm asking for your support and your vote in the election on November 4th. But if there's only one thing that you take away from tonight's event, let it be this. The safety, security, and well-being of our community has always been my first and foremost priority and will continue to be so in the future. Everything that I've done for this city, for its citizens and its stakeholders will focus back on one of those three principles. Now, a very quick bio of me. I've been married for 35 years to my lovely wife, Mary. I've been in Georgia for 33 years. I was an air traffic controller for 26 years. I've been retired for almost 8 years. I'm a member of the Senoia United Methodist Church, and I support many of the local nonprofit organizations. I've been in public service either as a volunteer, a civil servant, or an elected official for my entire adult life. But taking over a leadership role is always challenging. But doing so during the pandemic and the restrictions created a whole new set of challenges. However, once we got our footing and slowly returned to normal, we hit the ground running. I've been working diligently to make your life more comfortable and safer. Now, paving roads and fixing potholes is always going to be a reoccurring task, but I completed the realignment of Highway 16 and Pinewood Street. I also created the new Mary's Parkway at the Stone Lodge, and we're currently working to complete the realignment of CB Street and Highway 85. All of these major projects are safety-related issues. The two realignments are going to allow better visibility and access, and the parkway provides easier access for first responders to large gatherings down at the lake. I've also completed more than 3 miles of multi-use trails, which increases connectivity and reduces recreational traffic on our roads. We've completed phase 1 of the CB Street Park renovation and have just recently approved the plans for phase 2. We'll also be acquiring the recently renovated Coweta Street Park. The paperwork has gone through. All we're waiting for is HUD to sign off on it, and that will be a city park also, providing more amenities to all of our residents. We've completed a new sewer plant and upgraded the drinking water plant that will serve Senoia for generations, not just for the next 4 years. I've worked tirelessly in protecting the essence of Senoia by advocating for protecting our historic district and by drawing clear delineation between the business district and residential properties. If we allow our historic homes to become commercial, then all of our historic properties will become diminished and we'll lose our hometown feel. Growth is an inevitable challenge, and frankly, it's vital for the success of any city, but allowing businesses to creep into our residential properties will forever change the identity of Senoia. I've always fully supported our police department and funding and staffing to ensure the security of Senoia. All of your city's property tax, the M&O portion of your property tax, and a portion of our impact fees goes to fund our police department. I've also established a great relationship with the Coweta County Sheriff's Department and extended our mutual aid agreement. Sheriff Linwood is a great friend to me and to the city of Senoia, and he has endorsed my candidacy for re-election. Excuse me. The end result is that Senoia this year is ranked as the safest city in Georgia out of 535 municipalities. Senoia is ranked first. We also can't take a zero growth policy. I can give you numerous examples of towns that have adopted shut the door policies, and those cities are struggling. Cities are either growing or dying. There is no such thing as having one as status quo, but controlled growth is our best opportunity to see the types of developments that will benefit the city and its citizens. However, controlled growth and rapid growth are not the same thing. In fact, most of the developments that we see in the city today are developments that were started many years before my term even began. When it comes to annexations, I have to weigh each application on an individual basis. The first thing to keep in mind is that a new project must contribute something beneficial to Senoia, other than simply increasing its tax digest. Landowners only want to be annexed into the city if the city can provide a service that either the county won't or can't provide for them. The question we as a council have to ask is what that new development provides for the city. However, I am adamantly opposed to forcing property owners to annex into the city only for the benefit of attaining much larger tracts of land. Eminent domain and forced annexations should seldom, if ever, be used, and only in cases where there is clear and convincing evidence that it will enhance the safety, security, and well-being of the greater community. Senoia is experiencing growing pains. The increase in population, traffic, and parking concerns, and yes, we do have parking concerns, the necessary upgrades and assessments to our infrastructure and properties, the constant battle over responsible parties, be it the county, the state, the Board of Education, or the municipality. Even the services that we're providing as a city continually grow. But these are all good problems to have, as long as we take a pragmatic approach to the solutions that include all stakeholders in the process. We more than doubled the parking capacity of Main Street during my term. When questions of jurisdictions arise, we take swift action to ensure the safety of our residents. And when we discover hidden problems that have been brewing for decades, we act decisively to correct the issue. Now, this is what I'm not. I'm not about personal or professional gain from this office. I don't have a business in town. I do not have any relatives with businesses in town. I don't own any properties other than my own home in this town. My investments are far removed from anyone doing any business in the city, and therefore I can take an unbiased approach at any proposal that comes before council and make a decision based on the benefits to the citizens and not how it would affect my net worth. I'm also not married to any particular ordinance. Our code of ordinances is longer than the state's constitution, And many of those ordinances are outdated, possibly archaic or even punitive. But here's the rub. I took an oath of office that says I will uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Georgia Constitution, the laws of Georgia, and the ordinances of Senoia. There is a process for changing ordinances. We can't simply bypass an ordinance because it's inconvenient or someone doesn't like it. Variances are intended to be used in cases of hardship, not caused by the applicant and not because they don't want to follow the rules. My opponent actually asked me not to run for re-election because, among other superficial reasons, he told me he deserved to be mayor for everything he's done for the city. Besides being slightly shocked at a sense of entitlement, my first thought was, Senoia only owes you a fair opportunity to make a return on your investment. And then I thought, what does Senoia owe me? And my conclusion was nothing. Senoia has given me everything that I could ever hope for in a hometown. So that's why I'm running, to be able to give back to the community that has given me everything that I wanted. I ask for your support on November 4th, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dub, and thanks for not confusing my glasses with yours. Dub mentioned the growth. How many here are residents of Senoia less than 5 years? Newcomers. Less than 5 years. The growth here is unbelievable. Taking a quick sidebar, is it Senoia? Senoia? I grew up just 10 miles here. My dad told me it was Senoia. Boy, was I wrong. Our last candidate for mayor, Scott Tigchelaar.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate you being here. I'm wondering where all of you were when they were talking about the 141 project that was proposed on the other side of Highway 16. I hope you'll come to the next meeting on that one. As you know, I'm running for mayor of Senoia. For your support. To give you a little background on how I came to be here, I moved here in 1994 with the film studio that was here. It was a family business. I came here from Canada back then, where I was raised on a farm. I worked for my dad's company there out of university. Moved down here to work for my uncle's company, which was the movie studio. Senoia has changed an awful lot since that time. Back then, Mr. Hutchinson was still standing on the corner every day. There were probably only 5 businesses left in town. I spent 5 years here working at the studio. I ended up being blessed to marry my wife, Adrienne. We've been married for 28 years now. We moved back to Toronto for 5 years to start a family and help my dad wind up his company before I came back here to help reinvigorate the film industry in Georgia. And help reinvigorate the film business. It's been a wild ride for that business since. There's been a lot of studios. We used to be the only studio in Georgia, here in little old Senoia. And since then, there's probably been 25 studios built. A lot of industry that's come to Georgia because of that. While we were working on that, we had an opportunity. I was not in the real estate business at all. I'd never been in the real estate business. I'd never been in the development business. But we had developed a relationship with the stakeholders here in town over the years, just through the film business. Folks like the Holbergs, the Hutchinsons, the McKnights. And as some of you who lived here back then know, the McKnights had to sell their gym property. There's a couple of pictures of it over there in the corner. They had a forced sale on that property. And they were in a tight situation, and the dollar store developer was the only person looking to buy it. They were gonna put a strip center in the middle of town with a dollar store anchoring it. At that point, we got into the real estate business because we didn't want to see the town ruined. Not that there's anything wrong with the dollar store, it just didn't belong in a historic town like Senoia downtown. So we sat down with the stakeholders here in town, the McKnights, the Hutchinsons, the Holbergs, and we made them a proposal. We asked them if they would sell us their vacant lots in town. We didn't want to buy their buildings. We wanted them to hold on to their buildings. Those have been in their family for years. We asked them to sell us their vacant lots. We committed to them that we would fill them in with not dollar stores. Our timing in the real estate market was amazing because we built our first building in 2007. Finished that in 2008 is where McGuire's is now. We built the next building where Lisa's Creperie is in 2009. Still in the bottom of the recession. We only bought a few properties in the downtown. We bought the ones that we thought were critical and would protect the town to fill them in with something that met with the architectural integrity of the town. And over the last 20 years, we've been doing that, first just on the side, because we love the town and we cared about it. I had moved my family here. We had small kids and we were raising them here. We wanted to have the perfect setting for life. Once we sold the studio in 2017, Senoia Enterprises, which is our little development company, became my only job. This is my only development. I'm a big developer, I'm not a big developer. One horse town developer, and all I care about is filling in those gaps on Main Street with quality, not quantity, just quality, and continuing to protect the integrity of that's here in town. A lot of you raise your hands that have moved here in the last 5 years. We have an amazing town, and it's getting better and better every year. It was in rough shape when we started this project. There was only 5 businesses left on Main Street. Now there's over 100. I don't own all those businesses. I don't own all the buildings. We had committed to the folks, the stakeholders, the families here, that if they kept their buildings, they would double or maybe even triple in value. And slowly over the years, they've done that. And one by one, a few of them have sold their buildings off. Mr. Holberg told us before he passed away that if we hadn't started the revitalization of this town, he'd have lost his business in the recession. They're still there today. We're proud of that. As we move forward and as we look forward, it's important to me to continue to protect the integrity of this town and the quality of life here. You'll see me around town every day. This is leave town. I love it here. I care about it. I care about the quality of the growth here. And that's the reason I'm running. It's not for financial gain. I've got the properties that I bought 20 years ago. We're filling them in. We're trying to curate good businesses here in town. There's a plus and a minus to that. They're mom and pop shops. That's the plus. The minus is when somebody doesn't make it as a business, for whatever reason, it could be a divorce, it could be a death, it could be they just didn't have the best idea for a business. If they don't make it, there's nobody from corporate that's going to send somebody else to take their place. I think that's a good thing. The banks used to ask us, where's your baby Gap? Where's your anchor store? And we said, we don't want that. That's all around us. We don't want this town to look like everywhere else. You go somewhere in America now and stand on a street corner, there's a Lowe's, there's a Home Depot, there's a Walmart. You don't even know where you are anymore. You know where you are in Sonoma, Georgia. And that's important to me, and I suspect it's important to all of you. I'm getting involved in politics, which is the last thing I ever said I would do. But I'm getting involved in politics today because I care about the future of this town. We all seem to be concerned about the growth that's on our doorstep. It's coming fast and furious. This was a sleepy little town for years. It's not anymore. And there's a lot of things happening, and there's a lot of people, big developers, real developers, with big tracts of land all around us. And we can't be passive about their development. We have to be proactive about their development. It's not enough to say, traffic is DOT's problem. lack of schools is the school board's problem. It's our problem. It just happens to be their jurisdiction. And that means you gotta go stand on their desk and get results. Because if you wait until they bring you results, you'll be waiting a very long time. That's a problem for our town. I know the DOT commissioner for our district. We've been good friends for 20 years. His son used to work for me. We used to have a bypass on DOT's long-range plan that went away years ago, working to get that back. We want 16, if it's gonna go 4 lanes, to go 4 lanes somewhere else. So, thanks, Steve. It's important to be proactive about that growth. It's important to get on a developer's desk. It's important to get on the school board's desk. When we first started redeveloping the town, we asked the school board for a new school out here. We asked them for a little more attention because it used to be pretty Noonan-centric. And they wouldn't give it to us. So we went and got one of the first 7 charters for charter schools in the state of Georgia. And Mitch Seabaugh helped us do that. And it took grabbing it from the state of Georgia and fighting with the county over it. We got us to school. We need to be that proactive because if we wait around, it's going to be a problem. The school board won't be proactive for us. So that's why I'm running. My opponent mentioned that this is about the money or that I have investments here. I care about this town because I have investments here. But it's not all about land. If some of you have watched my videos, I have sold properties to stakeholders who are like-minded that wanted to play in the sandbox here with us and cared about this town. There are some people here that I've directed to properties that are available to buy that I could have bought, but I don't want to buy it. I don't want to own everything. Some of you know I sold Bistro Hillary. I was their landlord. I sold it to Jim and Hillary because they got kicked out of their last location, and that was wrong. When that happened, I rewrote their lease and gave them a purchase option, and 2 years ago they bought their building, and they've been building equity in their future ever since. It's not about the money. It's about caring for this town and caring for the community that we have here. So thank you. Appreciate you being here. Looking forward to some questions and answers. I want you to ask tough questions. I've got some answers.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for hitting their time marks. We're looking at the schedule, so that means there's a little bit more time for Q&A. So we're going to move to the Q&A session now. How that'll work, there's a microphone right here in the center of the room. Again, you'll step up to the microphone. Please say your name and address clearly, and then state your question. You'll have 1 minute to do that. If it's directed to a particular candidate, please state their name so they'll know to answer. If it's directed to city council in general, then we'll allow both candidates 3 minutes to respond. If it's directed to one candidate in particular, we'll allow 3 minutes to respond. Okay, so that's how this is going to work. We need to get a mic check, I think. And Jeremy, let's see, Evan, would you step forward and Dylan can step forward and check.
Sure.
Sounds good. Everybody can step forward. This talent, Bill's got it. Okay, so I'd like for you to start lining. You don't have to line up, but let's queue up so we don't waste much time. If somebody's got the first question, we'll step forward. Again, state your name, your address, and the question, and just let me know where it's going.
Ryan Nolan, and I live on 65 Corner Lane in Milton. First, I want to thank you all for being here and just giving your time to participate in the city and also be put under the microscope. I know that's hard to do, and just all of your efforts up here, I think that's great to see. Would love to see the mudslinging kept to a minimum. Just, thank you to Matthew and Brent for really leading that charge and keeping your message pretty clean also. Just would like to see that moving forward as well. Just, we're all here in good spirits. We're all here to build each other up and build this community up. So my question, we brought up kind of building inside the town, owning properties in the town, and kind of understand both sides of that coin. The one side being, hey, you don't want the impropriety of owning the property. And on the other side, you see the investment in the town as something that's, a vote of confidence in the future of the town and building Senoia to be a place where, living and investing in. So I'd like to take a second with each of you to kind of give me your perspective on that and just hear from you.
That's for both council and mayor.
Everybody.
Okay, start with Matthew.
So just restate, sorry, one more time, restate the question.
So just understanding kind of the investment in the town, I get the side of the coin where it may be an impropriety and being above reproach. And then the other side of the coin where it is a good investment in the town that you live in, you see it as a vote of confidence for the future of Senoia, or just what your perspective is on that.
I mean, so you can look at it either way, honestly. It's all going to be extremely subjective. Me personally, I prefer to stay on one side of that coin. Clearly, other people might disagree with that. And that's perfectly fine, but it's to look at it and go, at any point, somebody's investment in the town can come to a very quick and abrupt stop. Correct? And so when you look at it from a certain perspective of going, long-term, the ramifications and things like that, there's going to be decisions made that may or may not benefit the individual, but the development business in and of itself is always going to be kind of a weird snake eating its own tail type thing. Looking at it objectively from that perspective of saying, being kind of separate from that side of the business, being separate from owning a business. I like people that invest. My wife and I are substantial clients to a lot of the businesses and the shops in this town. We prefer to shop local, we prefer for our dollars to stay local. But at the same time, it's, we've got to be able to make sure that decisions that are being made are 100% free and clear, just kind of above the fray. Right? And for me personally, I look at that by saying that the easiest way for me to do that is to go. You can actually see my house from here. But that's the way that I like to be able to say that, being able to stay objective, being able to ensure and reassure back to the citizens that there is always going to be objectivity. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Ryan. For me, there's a reason why if you rent a car or rent a house, there's a security deposit. Because, if you're not invested in something, the landowner, the property owner, the car owner, they want to make sure they protect their investment. And the generalization is if you're not invested in something, you're not going to treat it as if it's your own. So for me, I'll just be, this is a shameless plug, I'm sorry, I own a coffee shop in town, and if you haven't been there, there's some good coffee there. I roast it, so it's fun. I also own the property there, and through my time with the Historic Preservation Commission, I served on that commission for more than 6 years. I had several times where people came in, they were either adjacent property owners or something that would be a conflict of interest for me. And just being the citizen that I am and caring about the process, I just simply recused myself from speaking into that situation. So I think there's opportunities, and the process is clear on how you can resist those conflicts of interest. But I own residential property in the historic downtown. I'm just going to say clear, I am fully invested. You could not drag me out of. And I want to care for this place. I want to care for you as my neighbors, just as much as I want to care for anything that I own in the town. And I appreciate your heart toward that as well.
As I mentioned, I grew up in Canada when I was younger. In high school, I was voted most likely to become an American. That's not a joke. So I went to university, I found an American girl, and I married her. And so they had to take me. And I'm here because I'm a capitalist. I'm here because I love America. And I'm not ashamed of that. There's been a big old smokescreen about conflict of interests. And, this whole notion that you can't own property or own a business and be on council, I find ridiculous. Because this is America, and our president is a builder and a developer. God bless him. I want to assure you people, we have mechanisms in place. This was the South, and a lot happened back in the day. And there are sunshine laws, and there are Freedom of Information Acts, and there is mechanisms in place to prevent dirty dealings. And it doesn't matter who you are, and it doesn't matter what you do. If you don't have ethics, you're a problem in government. If you do have ethics, we want you in government. So, when I qualified for running for mayor, and I'm legally qualified for running for mayor, I had to fill out paperwork that identifies every single piece of property I have an interest in. Every investment, which isn't much because it's just property, but any kind of investment in an Edward Jones account or anything like that, anything that I have an investment in, I had to identify that. That forms a baseline at the beginning of what will be my 4-year term as mayor. That baseline is a benchmark to be measured against. It's not like our federal government, who they get a little crazy, but here in Georgia and in the city of Senoia, you're not allowed to do that. And you're not allowed to do that. If a property that I own is up for anything for consideration by council, I have to recuse myself. And all of you are witnesses to that. The rest of council is a witness to that. The city attorney is a witness to that. There's no monkey business allowed. So I just want to assure you of that. The same goes for owning a liquor license. That's a ridiculous law as well. It's antiquated. There's only a couple of cities in Georgia who still have it. The city council doesn't even vote or rule on liquor licenses. And I have a way of divesting mine should I become mayor. So none of this is a problem. It's a smokescreen. I just wanted to assure you of that.
Thanks, Scott.
I don't have any investments, but I want people to continue investing in the downtown area. Not only that, I want to see more commercial and light industrial investing in the city. The reason that I want to see that is because those are properties that offset the expense that residential property has to incur. They pay higher rates for water, higher rates for sewer. Their property digest is much higher than what residential is. And overall, it costs the city a lot less money to manage commercial and light industrial than it does for residential. We were in an imbalance with our residential and commercial property. So I hope to see more commercial investment coming into the city. But how that doesn't really affect me personally, because I'm not going to be doing any of that investment. I would like to see that balance come out a little bit sooner, just because it's going to save us, the residents, in the long term. I support as many local businesses as I possibly can. My truck is a 2018 and I barely had 40,000 miles on it. That's because we walk everywhere. I love being able to walk to the dentist, walk to the restaurants. And I want to make that walkability better for everybody in the city so they can share in that. Because every dollar that is spent within the city gets recycled at least 3 or 4 times. In some cases, it's recycled 7 times. I give him $1, he's going to go over to the next store and he's going to buy products from them also. What that will also do is it insulates the city. When the country starts going on an economic downturn, the city is basically an isolated microcosm, and we're taking care of our own. So, hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
Hey, everybody, I didn't want to sit there quiet all night.
Do you want me to come back up?
Yes. I just wanted to say real quick, I immigrated here in 2008. I went through, let's see, I started on a J visa, then a P visa, H-1B visa, green card when I got married. Guess how many of those employers, excuse me, guess how many of those employers offered me retirement? 0. So, excuse me, I don't know why. My point is the idea that me, as an individual, am allowed to invest in property in this town, sit here as a member of the council is offensive. I just hope that you recognize the recusement. We recuse ourselves if there's any property that comes up. That's interesting. And I hope that idea and concept will just fit this out a little bit because it's to be unreasonable. So it's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Exactly.
I'm going to make that audible. The questions that are asked for everybody, we're going to limit our response to 2 minutes in order to move. Please, next question.
Hi, my name is Jack Verdi. I live at 370 Ivy Lane, and we moved here about 12 years ago. So part of the way, but maybe a little bit more like first wave. Anyhow, so I appreciate the discussion on growth, which is obviously important to everybody here. And when I talk to my neighbors, and certainly I'm doing it too, we talk about the growth, and especially the way it affects us very often is taxes. When I moved here, our property tax was about $2,000 annually, and our bill that we got in the mail today is well over $7,000. And so I think with this growth, I got 20 more years in workforce. Is it going to be like $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year? Will we be able to afford it? Like you, we don't have, a retirement account going up and up. And so I'd really like to hear, what you all think about that. I know already that a big part of it is the school board, and you're not solely responsible for taxes or anything like that, but you are part of the process, and we would expect you to advocate for us. So especially you as incumbents, I'd like to hear what you've done to defend the people from excessive taxation. And to you challengers, what would you do differently? How would you help us? Thank you very much.
Is that for all candidates?
If they're sure. Yeah. Especially the mayors.
Senoia has consistently been able to roll back their millage rates for the last 20 years. The one time that we did not meet the rollback target that we were looking for, it was an increase of 0.3 mils, and that was during crazy inflation time. There are 3 other referendum items that are going to be on the ballot on November 4th. There will be an age exemption for the school board tax. There'll be a reauthorization for the eSplosh, which is the current tax that's going on. And there'll be an additional referendum called the floating local option sales tax. The floating local option sales tax is a 1 cent tax that will be added to purchases that is directly attributed to the M&O portion of your property tax for county and for city. Whether or not it's going to pass, I couldn't tell you. A lot of people don't like new taxes. I can tell you that most of the studies that we are seeing show that 40% of the sales tax that comes into our county is paid by people outside of the county. So they are basically going to be subsidizing our real estate tax. It would significantly reduce what the M&O portion would be of the property tax for the city and for the county. For the Board of Education, I can't help you with that because they opted out of the forms.
I think it's one thing to talk about bringing more business here. It's another thing to bring more business here. I brought a lot of business to this town, and the reason that's important to your question is the more commercial that we have, the less burden there is on the residential taxpayer. My taxes doubled, my property taxes doubled 2 years ago, doubled. It's a pretty significant jump. We've got a lot more revenue coming in every year. It's hard to find it in our budget because our budget doesn't make a lot of sense. I've shared this, I've been in business my whole life. Small business, I've been responsible for meeting payroll and making a bottom line positive because I live or die if it doesn't. our budget is a mess. I've shared it with other cities, city managers. They said they would never put this in front of their city council, and their city council would never accept it if they did. Our revenue is going up $4 million in the next year in this city, and everything's out of whack in this budget. So I'm looking to be your mayor to bring some business sense and common sense to how this city is run. It's one thing to be in government all your life. That is a different mentality. It's a different approach. You likely never even see a budget. I look at one every day because I live or die by it, like I said. And I'm committed to getting a lot more taxpayer benefit out of the revenue that's being generated in this city. Our city manager, back in the day, Richard Ferry, one-man show in city manager, he was making $85,000 a year. We have 2 city managers now, they're making $458,000 a year. That's a problem. That's a problem. And it's very hard to see that in this budget because this budget's very opaque. So I don't think I need to say anything more.
Doug hit all the kind of top level answers as far as the city taking rollbacks, things like that. Our millage rate for the city is the only thing that we can directly control. The county, and the county tax assessor's office, and the county school board, as far as the assessed values of property and then their individual millage rates. They want to work with us, sometimes they don't. That's just unfortunately part of how it is. The county last year decided to take the full rollback on their millage rate. They kind of okey-doked their county manager and some of their finance people with that. And what wound up was that they had this beautiful new jail that they couldn't afford based on that rollback rate to actually put jailers in. So there's got to be a thoughtful approach as it looks forward, but also understanding that everybody is facing a lot of downward compression from taxes. Ours have gone up substantially as we bought a historic house and we've been putting money into it. And so unfortunately, the county has been raising our assessed value substantially from when we bought the property. And you've just got to, unfortunately, you can fight the county on the assessed values, things like that. You can talk to us about our millage rates and our portion of it. And as Doug said, we've successfully been able to take that rollback rate consistently because the economic development really, one of the big drivers for the past handful of years has been the Publix. It's been a huge economic driver for us from that, our portion of the local option sales tax that comes from that has been massive for the city. And so that's where Doug was speaking more, I believe, about increased commercial development, things like that, the Faust tax, which again is huge because from a statutory perspective, we have to use that to directly lower millage rates. There is no other option. That's the only way that we're allowed to use that tax. The county, it's on the referendum ballot, and I would really suggest everybody take a long look at it because that's going to be a potentially great thing for us to be able to severely reduce our property taxes. And that's what I'm here to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I think good approach is to control what you can control. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing your story a little bit about how much your taxes have gone up. I'm experiencing the same thing as well. I did object to a tax bill I got and won. So come on, give us some cheers on that. So you have to advocate for yourself, but I think there's opportunity for us to be more efficient and good stewards of what we can control. Let's operate the city with fiscal responsibility and make sure that we're maximizing all of the dollars that we're bringing in, tax revenue and what other revenue that is coming in. Let's maximize those to the best of our ability. And that takes some intention, that takes some vision, that takes some business sense. And, my coffee shop, kind of back to the making money, like we barely make it, like we're limited on the amount of revenue that comes in. So I know what it means to count every penny and count every product that you buy, and from a business standpoint, make sure that you are caring for the money that's coming in to the minute detail, because the money is limited. So I know what it means to be efficient, and even in hard times, when COVID hit, probably one of the hardest things I've ever dealt with from a business standpoint. Our whole business model is welcoming people in and around community, and we were no longer able to do that. So you have to pivot and understand how you can operate more efficiently and be creative with your income and your expenditures. So,
We're doing great on time, so welcome to the microphone.
Good evening, my name is Rebecca Miller, 444 Christian Street, Fieldstone subdivision. I think, I appreciate all of you being here tonight. My questions are for the incumbents still. I think most of us here feel proactivity is something that we expect from our elected officials. That's one of the reasons we elect you, because we can't always speak for ourselves with other municipalities, governments, otherwise. I think we all feel the lack of proactivity at this point with the traffic on 16 because of the growth over the last several years. And we were proposing more growth so forward. So in the future, if you were elected, what are you going to do to address those issues proactively going forward?
Your question for the incumbents only or for?
Incumbents only.
Incumbents only.
Again, rock, paper, scissors, who stands first. I think the biggest thing is understanding that part of our traffic issues and transportation issues are 100% involved with the direct growth of the city. If you go out 16 to I-85, there's distribution centers, there's a lot of growth and development happening in that area. You go all the way back over to the other side, through Griffin, distribution centers, and a lot of growth happening in that area. So one way or the other, we would be up against this, because Senoia is still on Rural Highway 16, and Senoia is still very unfortunately the best route for people to get, let's say from LaGrange to Jackson. Just, pardon me?
Thank God it doesn't go through downtown like they wanted to do it.
As far as, I'm sorry.
Historically, they wanted 16.
Okay, great, to
Yeah.
cut straight through, yeah.
Yep.
I agree with what Scott said. We do need to get the bypass back on the agenda. However, it's also with an understanding that ultimately by doing that, what's going to be great for us, some of our neighbors and our stakeholders that live a little south of us are going to wind up drawing the short end of the stick. And so there's a strategic way to go about doing that and really trying to hammer through that future of transportation. The last thing I would want to do is wind up like our friends in Peachtree City with what's happening at 5474 right now. And the boondoggle that's been it's been a mess since the dawn of time, it feels like, but now the endless construction, we don't want that either. So there's got to be a proactive but balanced approach to that with our friends at DOT.
Not that I want to claim your time, but I want to clarify too, it's more than the traffic. I mean, in Fieldstone subdivision, we have severe electricity problems throughout the summer. We have brownouts constantly. We have, we talked about the education. We have students that are in the classroom, overcrowded classrooms. I mean, it's not just the traffic, because I know the DOT is a boondoggle.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems in every area of infrastructure almost, we're experiencing those issues that should have been addressed prior to the increased development.
Understandable. Unfortunately, no matter how proactive we want to be, like Georgia Power's example, they actually have been going through, they spent the last year or so going through and making some pretty substantial upgrades to the infrastructure for this area specifically. They're not going to deal with it until it is a problem. A problem to them isn't a problem until it's a problem. Right? And so we ultimately and unfortunately at times like that are going to get left holding the bag. And we can push as hard as we want to, but at a certain point, it's up to them ultimately to finally go, okay, fine. And it's, I have words that I want to use that I'm not going to use in front of a big crowd like this, but it's unfortunate because that's the reality of what we're kind of faced with as it pertains to a lot of that school board the same way. I know that the school board intends, from what I understand, to build a new school in the next couple of years. Where and what type of school? They'll figure that out. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the question, I really appreciate that. We have been working with DOT because frankly, Senoia has to fight above its weight class in a lot of type of scenarios. We're not Newton, we're not Griffin. So usually on those two ends of that spectrum, they're the ones that are having more pull with what's going to happen as far as DOT. We have put together a quasi-coalition with all of the communities in between Noonan and Griffin to be able to work on trying to get some better solutions for the traffic issue. For the school board directly, we have been getting in touch with our representatives on the school board more frequently. It's a requirement now for annexations that we have to coordinate that with the school board. As far as the utilities go, we can control water and sewer with new developments that are coming in. Gas, cable, and electricity, we are pretty much at their whims. They have been working with us on the electrical upgrades with Georgia Power. You'll notice there's a great big green ugly box that's on Main Street that nobody really cares for. That is actually a temporary bypass machine that is helping them get the power through now so they can get the upgraded infrastructure that they need. So that box is eventually going to be removed. So we are working proactively. We're just not necessarily announcing what we can do until we get a result or there's some kind of decision that we can advertise.
Thank you for your responses.
For the question, next.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Neal. I'm 481 Pilot and I have 187 Morgan Street. I have a question for everyone but Doug, because I have personal experience with him, so I'm going to make sure it's going to be no. What in my opinion? If you are elected, can you serve with honesty and integrity, and can you be transparent? Will you treat all citizens the same? Or are you going to uphold everything? Like if you're supposed to pay a deposit for a water bill, are you gonna uphold that for everyone across the board, or are you gonna let people just go willy-nilly? And I wanna say really quickly, I have owned a home here so long that my first property bill, I think it was $179. And then it went up to $3 something, and I was like, what in the world? And now I'm afraid I haven't looked at my new tax bill.
Rebecca, I think all the candidates addressed the transparency and the ethic issue basically, but if you got a specific.
I want to hear them say yes. If they can serve with honesty and integrity, don't you think they can just say yes or no?
Bill they have, but I'll let them.
Okay?
Are they again?
Well, I already know Doug King, I mean, in my opinion. I already know Doug's answer. 3 seconds now, Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Eddie Oliver, 33 Barnes Street. My question is really on the 141 project, so it might be a little specific, but what are you gonna do? I actually just want to ask the two mayors.
Okay.
What are you gonna do to make sure that that project that's currently on the table, or anything else like it, is not going to change the heart of Senoia by our Senoia? I'm one of those. I say it different ways every time. Not gonna change the heart.
-10.
Not gonna change the heart of Senoia with the high, by bringing high density housing that we don't have. And it would, a massive high density housing development right outside of town.
Okay.
which
I'll allow 3
drastically
minutes,
changes it.
3 minutes for both candidates, starting with Scott.
I hope everybody is informed about what was proposed for the 141 project. It was 658 units on 141 acres, of which 300 were apartments. It got to a DRI, which is a Development of Regional Impact Study, that went through that study. The attorney for the developer came to the Planning and Zoning meeting on July 15th and mentioned that she had worked for the past 2 years with the mayor a member of city council, street plans, and city staff to design that concept plan that was in front of the city at that point. That should never have gotten to that point. I don't believe in what they call density bonuses for no good reason. That land is entitled by the developer to build about 140 homes. To get to 658 without anything of benefit to the city is a travesty. So to give you another example, Brent Scarborough, he's a big developer in this area. He's a really big developer in this area, and he owns some very large tracts of land. 1,000 acres just to our east he'd like to annex those. You got to get ahead of that project. You can't wait till they do their DRI and they come to council or planning and zoning and say, this is what we're proposing. And you sure as heck can't work with them to get to that level. So you got to say to someone like Brent, you're going to put 50 acres aside for schools if you're going to do that development. You're going to fix the traffic improvements that you're going to cause, the problems that you're going to cause on the front end. You're going to put a multi-use path into town so that everybody in your development doesn't have to get in their car to get to downtown for an event. You have to get ahead of it. You have to be proactive. It is not enough to say that's DOT's problem, that's the school board's problem, or that's the developer's right. Thank you. 658 homes was wrong. And interestingly enough, the minutes that were posted on the city's website omitted the part about the mayor and the city councilman working on that with the developer. They said that they had worked with street plans and city staff only. The chairman of the planning and zoning had to correct those minutes, and that shouldn't happen either. So I want transparency. I want the public involved at the front end of a development, especially these ones of regional significance, where we can all have input and weigh the pros and cons. Because we have to be realistic about it, folks. Some of these guys have the right to develop it in the county. And so we need to figure out how to get control of that and not give them density bonuses without getting something in return. Never get to that kind of density on any project around this town. That does not fit in with the flavor of this town and the spirit of this town. Thank you.
I will respond by my total involvement with working with the developer, was sitting in on one meeting with them. That was the first time they proposed an annexation into the city. They had to propose the initial phase. Annexation takes a 3-step process. One is to come to the city and say, this is what we're proposing to do. We want your permission to go to the county and see if they would allow it. After they negotiate with the county, they come back to the city. At that point, the property is annexed and rezoned simultaneously based on what the city would agree to. They did work with street plans, which personally, I'm not a huge fan of street plans, but they helped us out with the LCI study that we did with ARC. The first time that they asked for annexation, they did it incorrectly and created an island of county within the city limits. They were denied that. They had to go back and wait a year before they could reapply. The second time that they came back, they said, we were proposing X number of homes, and the members that were there said, we want connectivity from the south side of 16 over to the lake, whether that's a bridge or a tunnel or something of that nature. Their proposal that they came back in order to be able to pay for that required the number of homes that they were proposing. That's when they had to go to the DRI report. At that point, council said, we're not interested in that kind of density at all, just to get a bridge or a tunnel built through there. They have come back again and said, this is what our proposal was at a planning and zoning meeting, and then they came back for the public hearing at the council meeting, at which point they withdrew or asked for a continuance so they can revamp their concept plan and then come back to us. As a board, when we are considering annexations, we are a quasi judicial board, which means we can't express an opinion whether we're for something or against something until such time as we've heard all the evidence. That's similar to a judge saying, let's hurry up and have this trial so we can convict this man. So the issue that comes up is we are limited on what our responses can be before all of the information is submitted. Now, they are bringing back a new concept plan. I have not seen what that concept plan will be, but at that point, they will have to go to the county. And if it's not in line with what the county wants, then they'll have to negotiate with them. But we are still 2 full steps away from actually annexing or rezoning any of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Anyone else have a question?
I do, and I can't get to the microphone, but my family says I'm taking out some. So the city is in charge of our city.
Name and address.
Oh,
Thank you.
remember the cotton, damn distance of our water supply is off. I can't tell you how many times we have brown water coming out. You go to run it down, you think, I'm gonna get dirtier, getting in the bath for cleaner. They're constantly shutting the water off for maintenance. Meanwhile, the cost of water has skyrocketed. Everybody is complaining about it. What are we paying for? My last water bill is $188. And I am a retired woman.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll come in and each candidate can respond, starting with Brent.
Yeah, this is about prioritizing our infrastructure, and, it's unfortunate. My wife has a Ninja taste bud, and, water is one of the main ingredients for coffee. And she says, why does the water taste like dirt? We have a filtration system that we run. It's a pretty, high-dollar filtration system. We try to do what we can. And I haven't done any third-party tests or anything on the water, so I'm not going to speculate on what it is. But I did go with Councilman Lowe to someone's house recently that was complaining about the brown water, just to try to understand what they were dealing with. And to me, it's about prioritizing the service of what we're providing in the city. And we can't take the service down and the price go up. That doesn't really make sense in the business world. But can we really look at what's happening with our water system? From my understanding, I understand that some of the water mains are deteriorating, and it's going to be a process of taking care of those over the years to come. But I think for me, it's about how can we get our infrastructure in a place where the service that's being provided is a positive to the citizen, and not something where we see online on a regular basis. Water's brown, or the pressure. I talked with someone yesterday about the pressure, wanting to put a well on their property, and was told that they couldn't put a well on their property. And they're saying, how can I function with 30 plus PSI on my water pressure? Those are questions we need to look at and see if we can be proactive about caring for our citizens. I want to take a citizen first approach to every question that comes in. When you talk about your water, let's do some research on that and see how we can help make it better.
I am sorry about the water. I really am, because I get brown water also. Some of our infrastructure, especially in the downtown area, is almost 100 years old. We do run into some issues with water pressure on that end. The specific issues that we have with brown water, a lot have come from the issues with our fire department. Fire department was supposed to be doing all of the checks on all of our fire hydrants, and it's come to fruition that they weren't checking them the way that they should have been checking them. At that point that we found out that these hydrants were not working correctly, I told Public Works, you need to check every single fire hydrant to make sure that it is operational, so we don't run into the same issue that we ran into Morningside. We recently just had to dig up the water main and going into Martinwood. And the reason that we had to dig that up is because we found a 40-year-old Easter egg where they did a wet tap onto the main line. And instead of boring a 6-inch hole into that line to supply that neighborhood, they really only bored the pilot hole that was supposed to cut into that line. So we had an 1.5-inch hole that was basically supplying all of the water to the neighborhood. We didn't find that out until we went and we were doing the actual pressure testing on the fire hydrants. As soon as we found out that was a problem, we took immediate action to fix that so we would have proper water flow going through there. Once we flush those lines, it does pull up a lot of sediment. After we get all of the hydrants checked and make sure that they are operational, then we're going to be working on a more systematic check so we don't have to stir up that sediment over and over again. Thank you.
Doug said it very well. One of the things that I said 4 years ago, and I'll continue to say moving forward, is that if the city is going to offer something at essentially a monopoly rate, right? Because we supply your water, we supply the sewer. You might be able to get a well. I don't think people can get septic tanks in the city limits anymore. But the point being is that if we're essentially going to monopolize the service, then it really does need to be world class. I'll be honest, right now the water system is getting there, as Doug said. A lot of that infrastructure is aging. There's a lot of, I think he called it Easter eggs of going there, just certain things that we don't know what's wrong until we actually just physically dig it up out of the ground and find out what's wrong. The chicken and the egg issue there, though, is to improve the system at a rapid scale, we have to spend money on it. To spend money on it, then we have to adjust the rates because enterprise funds, so water, sewer, things like that, have to run technically at a profit. It can't be a massive profit. It's not, but you can't run, you really don't want to run it at zero, and you actually can't run it at red legally. We can transfer funds between general fund and enterprise fund. It's not the greatest idea in the world because the water system for bond ratings and things like that needs to be able to support itself straight away. So that's where we kind of run into where we're at right now of incremental step changes and fixes to try to not continue to have to re-rate water over and over and over again, because you're right, it's expensive. But the flip side, like I said, it needs to be world class, and I'll freely admit we're not there yet. But I'll also freely admit this, I'm not an expert in what a water plant needs to be and whatever. That's why we have, our dedicated people at the water plant and public works to help guide us along the journey of getting to that point of it being world class. Thank you.
I think the water sucks. I ran into the chief fire inspector who was going through a building in town, and I asked him what happened to the house in Morningside. He was the first one on the scene. He said the truck rolled up, they hooked onto the fire hydrant, there was no pressure. I said, well, why didn't you go to the next hydrant? He said, we went to 2 others. There was no pressure anywhere. Now, I was told, and I think a lot of people were told, that there was a valve next to that hydrant that was half turned off and buried in cement or something like that. And that in a council meeting, we were all told that the findings were inconclusive. I don't buy that. I don't buy that a mechanical problem has inconclusive findings. And nobody has told me, and I haven't heard from anybody else, that 3 hydrants had no pressure. That's a problem. And it's a problem to find out after a house burns to the ground. You need to know ahead of time. If the county's not doing their job, you should know they're not doing their job. So that's my position on that. Be a little more proactive, run it more like a business, and do a better service to the people who are paying for it.
I would just add that, I had a business coach tell me one time, you can have reasons or results, and you can't have both. we keep getting reasons, and I'm a citizen just like you, and I got voted in. One of the things I wanted to do is do better, right? Do the basics better, and perform better in all these metrics. And it's not, it's not enough to just blame someone else or set someone else's responsibility. So I'm committed to delivering into fixing these problems, and I think you all will have a clear choice about which candidates are best to do that and who's not.
Thank you for the question. We have another one?
Hi. My name is Lynn Went, and I live at 101 Main Street, so I live right downtown. I have a question for the new candidate. I have two problems with traffic. One is I finally given up on, complaining about the quantity of traffic, because there's not really anything we can do about that. But my two problems are, one is the traffic that's using downtown as a cut through between 16, and Peachtree City. And I live on the corner right at Main Street. And so I see all of these concrete trucks all day, very heavy trucks that are using our newly repaved streets that are just cutting through the city. And the other problem that I have is noise pollution, because I've sat on my porch and watched since COVID. It seems to me that the amount of noisy traffic has increased substantially, like with people who have, I don't know if it's aftermarket mufflers or, what it is, but we have a lot of vehicles that go through the city that make a lot of noise. And I think that some of that is a violation of Georgia ordinances as well. But I do believe that we need a robust traffic ordinance for the city to enforce the no through traffic. Even cities smaller than ours have those. I don't understand why we can't have that as
What have
well.
you done about through traffic to the new candidates?
Thank you.
Lynn, I'm right there with you. I put a big rock on the corner of CV and Main, and I yell at tractor trailers all the time to get hung up on that thing. They damage our downtown. They have no business coming through downtown. All I've ever heard was, and the police try, but they don't have an ordinance to back them up to fine people when they do damage. I have to get them on my cameras, track them down, and go after their insurance company just to get some restitution to the city. That should not be the way it is. So I've been complaining about the semi-truck traffic. There are ordinances, you know it, you're in the legal business. There are ordinances that can stop it. I don't know why they haven't been passed. I promise you they will be passed if I'm your mayor. And then it's about enforcement. On the semi-trucks alone, I've complained about it for years, and all I've gotten is a sign this big out by Winpack that says all trucks use Howard Road. You need a flashing billboard for these idiots who don't know how to drive and should have gotten a commercial truck driving license to begin with. Most of them don't speak English, and they've had their commercial truck driver's license for 2 weeks. And I'm out there in the middle of the street yelling at them, backing them up, and sending them a different way, because they don't even know enough about driving a truck that they can't make that turn. And we got to stop it. There's too many people, pedestrians in the downtown, that could get hurt. One got hurt right in front of your house. That's going to stop. There are ordinances that can stop it, and I promise you I'll stop.
I think somebody said at one point, let's make Senoia a cul-de-sac. Let's make it super hard for people to get through there, some of the things that are opportunities, to me in this 16 and Broad Street corridor, trying to limit, everybody's saying, let's go 4-lane with 16, with 16. Is there a way that we can limit it, make it harder for people to get through, narrow the streets and opportunity of Broad Street? Can you take that down even and eliminate a turning lane to try to narrow it down, make it difficult for people to cut through? There's a traffic committee that's in place. I want to work together with the traffic committee and try to find some common sense solutions. You know, are there opportunities for speed bumps? Are there opportunities to change streets to one way, to eliminate the cut through traffic? You know, it's not going to get any better in our current situation. You've got 3,000 acres off of Stallings coming our way. You've got 1,000 acres on 16 to the east of us. You've got the 141 project. We need to get ahead of this, and I am on board with slowing the traffic down. My parents live on Pilot Street. They call it I-285. We need to find some common sense solutions. Let's work together with a group of people, and we're smart people. We can do this. We can make this happen. Let's make it difficult for the cut through traffic. And then, like Scott said, it's about enforcing ordinances that are in place. Let's enforce those. If there's a noise ordinance, can we take our awesome police force and arm them with some opportunities to make it disadvantage for them to rev up their engines, you know, coming through town. I live on Main Street above the coffee shop, and believe me, we hear it on a regular basis. So I'm totally with you. Let's fight for a slow traffic through downtown Senoia. Let's make it as hard as possible for free traffic to come through Senoia.
Okay, we're still doing good on time. We have about 20 minutes left. Tyler has a question. You're going to adjust the microphone.
All right, hi. My name is Tyler Yott. I live at 151 Main Street, and I am a teacher. And there is a lot of discussion about the Board of Education and specifically what it would look like to try. Well, but my question is to Doug and to Scott. What would it look like if we tried to attract a private high school? The reason behind that, I know that the Department of Education is very difficult to deal with when opening a lot of steps in place. But because private high schools are not subject to the same public rules, in my understanding, it's easier to invite and attract them as long as zoning and basic utility requirements. So in Georgia, for example, a private high school would just need certain instructional and day hour times met and like a schedule, keeping attendance records and reporting enrollment data to a superintendent, but doesn't need district approval necessarily to open. So my question is, what steps could we take if you think that's a good idea, first of all, towards attracting something like that for our community? I think a lot of people in our city want to be able to send their kids to high school here and not have to zone them far away. I think that a solid, good piece of educational institution would do a lot of good for our
So
community.
is it a good idea and how to do it?
Yeah, and what steps could we take forward if you?
I do think it is a good idea. I know that Trinity was also looking at doing an expansion at some of the property out of Stallings. The biggest questions that I would have is where would it be located at? And who was going to be supplying the property for it? I've actually had developers come and suggest that we should make our own private school district within the city of Senoia. That is a little bit more challenging than giving an opportunity for a private entity to open up a high school. I think that would provide a lot of opportunity, and it would just depend on how easily it would be as far as accessibility. Would it be like a charter school, or would it be completely a private industry where all tuition is having to be paid by the attendees? But I think that's definitely an option. Senoia used to be called the redheaded stepchild of Coweta County because we were so far away from everybody else. Well, Senoia is more of the tail wagging the dog in a lot of aspects now, and we need to make sure that we're getting notice when we need new services brought to our citizens.
Thank you for the question. I'm for all kinds of schools of choice, and more better. Any kind of a private school, well, some folks might say, well, that's not my religion, or that's too expensive for me. Having another school, whether it's private, charter, or anything else, frees up congestion in the public schools, because some kids are gonna go there and make room. Mo Grover, who's not here tonight, he's in Nashville, he's on our council, has been on it for 20 years. He and I got the charter school that's here in Senoia here because we were being neglected by the county. And continue to communicate with them. We served on their board. We were the first board round for the charter school. We continue to communicate with them. They'd like to open another elementary and middle school and ultimately feed a charter high school. You got to find land available for them. They can purchase it, but you got to find land available for them, and you got to help them make that happen, and you have to be proactive about it. We've all seen with the public school system, and I'm a fan of it. You need that too. But you've all seen they wait so long to build a school. They've got a dozen portables by the time the brand new school opens. That's ridiculous, and that's just so much government at work. We can do better than that, and we can supplement with other alternatives, and I'm all for alternatives. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. Paul Rowley, 290 Kenwood over in Fieldstone. Hey, Paul. This is a question for both mayoral candidates. I've heard it multiple times tonight, being neglected by the county or something being decided by the county that's not in our favor. So kind of a multi-part question. What's your current assessment of the relationship of our city with the county board? What's your plan to make it better? And does our vision for growth match what they're doing? Does the county's vision for growth and prosperity match what we're doing as a city as well?
I've got a pretty good relationship with the county. I've been here with the film studio for many years. This county really rallied behind getting that tax incentive passed. So I've got a good relationship with our county administrator, our DOT commissioner, with a number of our county commissioners, with our school board, frankly. We've been told for 25 years by the state of Georgia, watch out, you're the next Gwinnett County, and you better be prepared for it. And we have been working to prepare for it in some ways and failing at that in others. Bullsboro Drive is a good example of a fail. Okay, it's absolutely a nightmare to get over there. It takes you 30 minutes to get to Bullsboro and then 30 minutes to get downtown Noonan. I don't like to go downtown Noonan just because of the commute. So we've got to do better than that. We've got to plan better than that. That's why I'm on my own. I've been meeting with our DOT commissioner for 2 years now, working with him to form a plan. We're not going to get 4 lanes through Senoia. It was going to bypass south of us, all 4 lanes. That's not going to happen anymore because they took it off their long-range plan. Thank you. Took it off their long-range plan. But there is an opportunity to have a 2-lane truck bypass that takes all that traffic, all that through traffic that was talked about going from Griffin to I-85, I-75 to I-85, take that away from the city. And that's what you got to be proactive about. Because if you wait too long, it'll all be houses down there and they'll never, ever afford the right of way. They'll just say, sorry, it's too late. So you got to be proactive about that. And I think I've got a good relationship, not only with our county leadership, but our state leadership. I'm on our governor's board of tourism for the state. I have been for 13 years. I'm the longest serving board member on that board. I was appointed by Governor Deal, reappointed by Governor Kemp. I have a good relationship with our state legislature because of my work with getting the tax incentive passed for the film industry. And I think I can do better than what's been done here. Thanks.
I would say our relationship with the county is not as bad as it used to be, but it's still not where it needs to get to. Our county commissioner is our assistant city manager, so a lot of bridges have been amended. But during the last negotiation with the local option sales tax, it was pretty clear and unambiguous that the county was trying to come after not just Senoia, but all municipalities. If you look at their long-range plan, their what's the long-term plan? Our comprehensive plan. If you look at the county's comprehensive plan, they have built high-density development zones around every single municipality in the county. That means that they expect the county to continue to grow at the normal rate, but they don't want any of the cities to grow. So until they pull that off of their comprehensive plan, I don't think that the relationship is where it needs to be. It is better than what it was, but it's not where it needs to be at. Thank you.
For that question. You have another? We gotta pull the mic back down. Right?
Leanne Skinner, and I live at 9 Dock.
Hey, Leanne.
My question is to the current mayor. It's a three-part question. First part is that the city council has requested repeatedly for a budget which compares year-over-year expenditures. The city staff has never provided that request. Why has that been allowed? And given that, the lack of providing that much needed data to the city council, how could you approve a maximum raise for the city employees, especially the city manager and assistant city manager, when these requests have been ignored? And lastly, the lack of performance evaluations for city employees. Why haven't performance reviews happened? As a business owner, with 25 employees, I have a difficult time understanding that.
Thank you, Leanne. We'll allow 3 minutes for that.
Okay. The first part that says we don't get year-over-year comparisons on that I can show you plenty of evidence where we have gotten year-over-year comparisons on the budget.
Excuse me, I was at the meeting on Monday night,
Yep.
and Dale asked one more, and he was told that they would start working on it next week.
That was for the specific questions that he was asking on the dollar amount and the variance of plus or minus 5%. That was well, give me an opportunity to answer because I've got 3 minutes to do this. We have got plenty of evidence that shows that they haven't received information year over year. This year was not specific with the information that they were requesting. They are making corrections to that and providing that was conditional on approving the tentative budget. The issue with performance reviews, they did not say they were not issuing performance reviews. He said that they do continuous performance reviews. That's exactly what the city manager said, because if they are not doing a job that they have been assigned to do, they are given an issue or given instruction on changing that, we are at an at-will state. We will terminate an employee if they're not doing that.
City manager had a performance review.
The city manager also continues to go through a continuous performance review. The performance review has to be conducted by the entire city council.
Has that occurred?
I have not, in the time that I have been here, we have not done a formal sit down and said, this is your performance review that we're going to provide for the city manager.
So how do you justify raises?
They're either doing their job or they're not doing their job.
How do you know if they're doing their job?
Well, for me personally, I'm in City Hall every day. I am seeing the job, I'm seeing what kind of activities are coming up. And if I'm not being notified of things that are not happening, there's no way for me to be able to say that that person is doing a good job or doing a bad job. Now, I have had people come up and tell me later, so-and-so doesn't communicate with me very well. I can't be a mind reader. I have to be informed of that instead of going through and asking the individual, hey, are you communicating with everybody the way that you should be? And at no point has any other member of council come up to me and said, we need to address an issue with the city manager specific to a performance review. That has to be conducted in executive session with the city council. Now, you had another part of your question.
Performance, it was how you did the raises. I mean, how did you justify in this last budget, this, I mean, they went, I mean, the amount that it's automatic rates. There's not any, you don't have a performance review. What do you base? And they're getting the maximum amount allowed, but what's it based on?
There was a 2% cost of living adjustment that will go to everybody if they're still gainfully employed in the city. The other 2% is a merit-based pay that is being evaluated by the directors of each department.
I would like to hear from Scott how he would do this different.
Okay, that's the time, we have 2 minutes.
Well, for anybody who runs a business here, you have to do performance reviews. In that city council meeting, they said that merit raises were automatic if you still worked there at the end of the year. That means the merit raise is supposed to be somewhere between 0 and 2% based on the level of performance, the additional skills learned, etc. So it's supposed to be on some kind of a sliding scale. It's been universal for everybody. If they were still working there, they got their full merit raise. If you look at the salaries in the city, they've gone up exponentially over the last 5, 6, 7 years. More so, and this is where AI works great, folks. Do a comparison of Senoia with our population and our revenue and look at what their budgets look like. Look at the detail in them. They're so much more sophisticated. Look at what the salary ranges are. Now, they did a study in 2022 for the sake of the police here, because they couldn't attract or retain police, because our neighbors, Peachtree City and Newnan, were paying more. So they were letting them us train them here, and then they were stealing them. So they did a study and looked at other cities around us to see what would be competitive pay for cops. That study got leverage, and everybody got big fat raises, and they've gotten raises ever since, and it's gone unchecked with no performance reviews and a lot of finger pointing that it's somebody else's fault. You cannot let that happen. Do the research, look at the budget, try and figure it out. But go on AI and look at what our peer cities are paid. It is a mess, and it needs to be cleaned up, and I'm here to clean it up.
Okay, I think we have time for one final question. No takers? Well, all right, maybe 2, we get a quick one? Go ahead. Yes.
80 Duck Drive.
Okay.
Okay. So I've been here 7 years and the traffic. Usually you get out on 16 on top. Now you have to kind of take your life in your hands. You have to the traffic, the speed limit is still 55 in front of our neighbors. We're closer to town, it's 45. So I don't know if something can be done about that. But I know, everybody wants to come to school. But these big projects where they're going to come in, and every time I see a small thing, I know the land's going to be scouted. There's not going to be a tree across the land. And can y'all not have some kind of ordinances or something that says you have to leave trees? Each big city did it, but you have to, they're going to see the trees. You ride now in the new subdivisions, they'll plant 2 trees in your front yard, they'll just be around. So, I want to know that then y'all can do something about it.
Okay.
There's more and more people coming into these big projects. I heard about there's on the other side of 16. That you're talking thousands of homes by the time all these are built.
Can I ask the council to address that?
I'm very happy to address that. Great question. I'm a big fan of the idea of ensuring that we are doing specimen tree inventories looking at canopy coverage percentages for these developments as they're in their planning phases. And we have, I believe, prescribed, there is a set number of trees and species and things like that that we actually want to keep up. There's green space requirements under the R40C, and at the time, the R25C, which thankfully is no longer there. But there are green space requirements, there are canopy coverage requirements, things like that. What we need to do better on is the other side of that coin of going, if you take these trees, if you do this, then there is a tree fund that you pay recompense into that we will then go ahead and use for reforesting other areas, use for new plantings, new things like that, to be able to essentially go, if you're going to go ahead and do this, then you are going to pay to try and address your issue that you've created somewhere else. And honestly, I'm a big fan of that. There are certain people that I've heard ideas thrown around with regards to, oh, well, private landowners, they shouldn't cut down their big old trees. And I live right there. I've got an old house. I've got a lot of very big old trees. And I keep them up there because I like them, not because I'm afraid that the government's going to come slap me on my hand or fine me should I have to cut them down. I believe that encouraging an education for maintaining what we have right now, specifically in the downtown, but like I said, really leaning on, on the canopy coverage and specimen tree requirements that we do have. And ensuring that, like I said, they make right one way or the other, that there shouldn't be, end around or a way out. Thank you.
Hey, come on. Yeah, thank you, Mary, for that question. I think, I'll just say just in general, I lean toward private property rights for an individual, right? So, but that doesn't mean that we can't, as a city, lead by example and really invest in our tree canopy and look for opportunities. We were recently at Better Way Ministries graduation, and you go by the cemetery, and I'm just gonna be honest, it just looks like scorched earth over there. As far as no trees, no shade, is there an opportunity in some of our key places to lead by example as a city and plant trees and care for the current trees that are there? I walked by when we were on our way to meet, I had the opportunity to meet with our tree committee and kind of hear what they're up to. On my way to that, I looked, there are several specimen trees, kind of probably 4 or 5 that look like they're not really in good shape. Can we be proactive with those trees about caring for them? Invite arborists in to look to see if there's some way we can save them or some way we can preserve them. There's one of the oldest trees right adjacent to Crooks Marketplace. That Skip King has done a lot of work trying to preserve. Can we be a part of that process and look for the opportunity to care for those trees? I think it also comes into play when we're looking at our ordinances that are in place. Can we have clearly defined, not ambiguous, clearly defined ordinances that tell developers, here's what you can, from a buffer standpoint, here's what you can clear, and hold them accountable to those buffers in the ordinance.
We have time for one final question. I'm sure it's going to be, how can I become a member of the? And maybe not. What's your?
I can assure you that's not the question. Good evening, William Swanson, 270 Villanelle. My question is to the mayoral candidates. Has there been a feasibility study to determine whether or not we would benefit from our own fire and EMS, that safety and security are on your top of your list?
Can you repeat the question?
Has there been a feasibility study to determine whether or not we could benefit from our own fire and EMS? Too often, and this is not to throw shade at County Fire, they do an excellent job. The ambulance that's here for us is often pulled to county center to provide coverage and to run calls there. That's the good and bad about being in our location. We're out here to the far east, we're away from the hustle and bustle, the higher call volumes are towards noon.
Understood. Take 2 minutes for both Mayor and Campbell.
I can take about 30 seconds. I can tell you after our latest incident, it's something that I very seriously considered, looking through the nuts and bolts of the service delivery strategy between us and the county. We are signed on for a 50-year obligation with the county fire and EMS services. So we would have to figure a way to negotiate out of that service delivery agreement first before we could take consideration. And then the initial outlay for creating a fire and rescue would be pretty significant. So
Sure.
that's something that we have not looked into, but the day I was getting thrown under the bus, it was definitely the day I was considering it. So,
And for you, Scott, what are your thoughts on having a feasibility study conducted?
If we're in a 50-year agreement, there may be nothing we can do about that. As we grow as a city, it's natural for us to start to take over certain services like that. And as W mentioned about the school board, possibly creating our own school board and local school jurisdiction here in our future. I don't think we're there yet. I do believe that we need better communication and a better working relationship with our county fire and EMS. When I met with that fire inspector here in town and asked him about what happened in Morningside, he mentioned that they're frustrated and they have very little communication with the city, and that's a problem that needs to be fixed. So perhaps our service level and our cooperation and our relationship with the county fire and EMS could improve, and that would improve the service to everybody here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to conclude tonight's Q&A. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. It's great that we can come together and hear those questions. I'd like to thank the panel.